Hello, we're going to talk about project planning. Project scope and work breakdown structure will both be discussed in the following presentation. So projects drive change, and without a proper plan to drive a project forward, projects risk failure. So sufficient project planning includes the development of both a project scope and a work breakdown structure. Project management has evolved to include upper levels of the organization so that work more clearly aligns with strategic initiatives, and this includes projects. By aligning executives and the workforce, goals are realized more quickly, and those working on projects can clearly identify with the strategic mission set in place by executives. This alone breeds engagement among the workforce, contributing to more effective teams and therefore more successful organizations. Well-defined projects succeed, and those without a clear plan more often fail. Although many would say failure is due to lack of resources, it is quite possible that if the plan were sufficient, then so too would be the resource allocation. Project scope is really a definition of the work that needs to be completed and the final product resulting from that work. It's an important document in the planning process as it defines what can be expected by embarking on such a project. Additionally, the project scope will build on the documents that already exist prior to creating the project scope. A complete project scope will include the expected result of the project as well as the constraints and assumptions used to define the project up to this point. During the planning process, the existing assumptions and constraints should be revisited to ensure that there is nothing new to add or changes to be made. Sometimes projects are selected prior to a project manager being assigned. When that happens, defining the project scope can be an important first step for the project manager. The project scope document will be revisited as changes to the project are requested. So this document clearly defines what is in scope and what is out of scope. The goal is to keep scope creep to a minimum, as unplanned changes to the scope and therefore the project can result in project failure, wasted resources, and inefficiencies. Indeed, the Project Management Institute found that more than half of projects experience some type of scope creep. So spending sufficient time, and energy during the scope planning can result in less creep and therefore greater success. Finally, a well-developed project scope will also include the measures for success. This ensures that in the close of a project, everyone is measuring success with the same tool. Techniques to develop a scope include expert judgment, data analysis, decision-making, interpersonal and team skills, or product analysis. Developing the scope can be achieved in any of these ways. One strategy includes gathering subject matter experts related to the project to define what is possible, what is not possible, and therefore how the project might be achieved. This approach is called expert judgment, and by utilizing this technique, project managers who might have limited knowledge about the project deliverables can learn from the experts. These experts can and should dispel myths and guide the discussion about what might be possible rather than speculating or believing a well-intentioned project sponsor or executive. So, achieving consensus when defining project scope. This is the part where we integrate change management and project management to achieve success. What we know is that highly engaged teams are effective and consensus drives engagement. So without consensus, projects have less of an opportunity for success. High stakes can make developing consensus difficult, so it is important to engage all project stakeholders as the scope is being finalized. One way to do this is to have a consensus taker. A consensus taker is someone who deliberately asks questions to gauge the entire team about their level of comfort with the content. Although this is likely an iterative process as more information becomes available, because consensus can sometimes waver. The importance of consensus around the scope to project planning should not be understated, because the project scope is the foundation for which the project will build upon. Additionally, once the scope has been determined, scope changes will be heavily scrutinized. Therefore, if consensus is reached, that buy-in from stakeholders could become important leverage. Another piece of the important puzzle in project planning is a work breakdown structure. This is really a graphical display of the work broken out into categories, which then result in the project deliverables. A work breakdown structure really provides the framework for how work will be completed. It allows for the project team to see the work in its subdivided parts, and eventually this can help with timelines and resource delineation as the project moves throughout the life cycle. The work breakdown structure is a robust document that will be referenced again and again throughout the project. Here is one such example. This example comes from Kerzner's problem 11.2, where we are defining a project that is about the production of a product. We can see the product is at top. The second level is components of that work, and the third level are the individual work packages or smaller, more meaningful, manageable parts. And so why is this helpful? Well, when you have more manageable parts, you can assign and keep track of things more easily. Individual contributors can identify how their work fits into the larger project. And you can use this to engage stakeholders, even those less familiar with the project. This structure can provide contributors the ability to interface with not only their tasks, but the tasks of others. And that awareness of how one piece of work affects another is an important part of project work, since full project success generally requires the completion of every step. So, in conclusion, every project deserves a plan, and project planning includes defining the scope and grouping work into manageable parts, called a work breakdown structure. A plan for a large project is more manageable when broken down into those bite-sized pieces, and for that reason, a well-defined scope, including limitations, assumptions, and constraints, is an important first step. A work breakdown structure can help you group like work together and make a project in total more meaningful and more manageable. Hopefully this was a helpful overview about project planning, including project scope and work breakdown structure.